Hi, this is Mike Stern, and this is Coffee Talk.
Hi, this is Leni Steed. This is Coffee Talk.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kim Perlak. I'm the chair of the guitar department at Berklee College of Music, and welcome to another Coffee Talk. As usual, we are joined by Assistant Chair Sheryl Bailey. Hey, Sheryl.
Hey, what's up?
Yay, Sheryl Bailey.
Woo! And our Senior Coordinator, Ian Steed. Hey, Ian.
Hey,
Ian.
Ian. Our special guests today are Leni Stern.
Yay,
Yay.
Yay. And Mike Stern.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Mike. We're really thrilled to have Mike and Leni, who are alums of the department and have been our guest artists all week here on Coffee Talk with us. So welcome back. Welcome back home to your guitar home.
A pleasure.
So we've been drinking coffee all week and hanging out together, but Leni, everybody wants to know from all of our guests on Coffee Talk, like, how do you take your coffee? Like, what's your preference?
I like a cappuccino. I like just a little bit of foamed milk in it.
I have to get my coffee. Hold on 1 second.
Okay, keep going. Mike's getting his coffee. Go ahead, Leni. What else do you like?
Hey, bird.
I like, sometimes I like a flavored coffee with a little bit of vanilla in it, or maybe a little bit of chocolate, like a sort of like, Sheryl, Vienna mocha in it. Me and Sheryl, we just played at Program Best in Vienna. In two different bands, but the coffee mocha they make in Vienna, it's like a cappuccino with a little bit of chocolate in it, like dark chocolate. It's so good. So that's my coffee.
Mike, what about you? What do you do for coffee?
I like coffee with my sugar.
Ah,
I like a lot of sugar, unfortunately, in my coffee. But I'm trying to cut down on the sugar. The coffee I like because it wakes me up sometimes. Let's see if it works today.
let's see.
Need more.
So you guys, you drink coffee like all day, all night, like when you're practicing and everything at night too, or no, Mike? Yes or no?
Yes, sometimes, but not too much. I try to cut back.
To decaf at about 8.
Okay, at about 8. At about 8.
But
yeah.
then if Michael wants to rehearse some fast too, I switch back. Because I can't play like chromosome with a decaf. I gotta have some recall.
Yes, you can.
Yes, no, I can't.
Okay, so another thing that a lot of people listening are thinking about is that they're pretty new to Berklee and they want to know what your first days were like. So Leni, do you remember like some of your first impressions of Berklee as a student?
When I came here and I had to register, there was like a huge long line. That's the most guitar players I had ever seen in one place. Like I come from Munich, Germany, and I think at that time there were like 800 guitar players and 4 female guitar players, and they were all out in a line on Mass Ave, and I was standing there and I was thinking, oh, what have I done? This is like a farm. This is a guitar farm. But then I got to study with John Damian and everything became amazing and very fun immediately.
Mike, what about you? What do you remember about the first times you were here as a student?
Well, I was here, first time was the summer that I was here in 1970 or something like that. I think 70, it must have been 70. And that was cool and got my ass kicked a little bit. And
Was it for the 5-week program, a summer program, or was it a semester?
No, it was 5 weeks. It was just the summer.
You went to 5 weeks.
Yeah,
Oh,
something
okay.
or 5 week or whatever they had. Then.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was 5 maybe.
Yeah, my first was a summer program too.
And that was a long, and so and it was Berklee School of Music then. It wasn't accredited right at that point. So, but it was great right away. I kind of dug the vibe and great teachers and all that stuff. And then when I just started coming here regularly, so then I decided I'd like to go regularly, and then it was even better. And it's the same kind of thing that I get a sense of now, that everybody learns from everybody, especially all the students learn from other students, and the teachers are amazing, and amazing players, and amazing teachers, so I mean, who are as good as anybody on the planet. I mean, really just extraordinary.
Amazing, yeah.
players and teacher. And like Sheryl is incredible. We played today and she was kicking my ass. She's such a swinging bebop, all the lines, everything, burning. And Kim is an awesome classical guitar player who's now branching out and doing more the other kind of stuff also. She always has been, but it's on an amazing level. I mean, we were listening to your record from Yale that you did. And we were just blown away. So, and that's just a couple of you guys. So there's a bunch of teachers on that level, and so it's amazing. And the world needs more of it. You know, I mean, especially nowadays, we need the arts. We need plenty of music, and this place is waving the flag for that. You know, it's really happening.
And you guys met here. The two of
We
you
met here.
Yeah.
That was the best part about it for me. Well, we met here, and I had already finished. I went for like 2 years, then stopped and took and then I took a year off and kind of played in some blues and rock bands in Washington, D.C., where my parents were living at the time. And then I came back to Berkeley, and I'd already studied a little bit with Pat Metheny, and I was studying some with Mick Goodrick before I took this little break. And then I came back and resumed that. And Pat heard about a gig with that they were looking for a guitar player. So he said he hooked up an audition for me from Bobby Colomby, who was the drummer for Blood, Sweat, and Tears at the time. It was the first instrumental horn band, you know, kind of rock, blues, jazz rock band. So I did the audition thinking I'll never get the gig, and I got the gig. So then I was really in trouble. But I never came. You know, I only went to Berkeley for 3 years. I never graduated or anything. But and I kind of wished I had, because there was so much more I could have learned from a cat named Herb Pomeroy. I was going to take line writing the 4th year, but then I didn't want to turn down that gig, that's for sure. So I did that. But I met Leni after I came back from Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and I was living in Boston and playing gigs with Jerry Bergonzi and Tiger Akoshi, who was teaching here for years and may still be. I don't know if he is.
I think Tiger just retired.
We're just retired.
Yeah.
He was the head of the composition department for when he was here. When we were playing together, he was teaching, but not the head of the composition department. I think he was teaching here, and at that point, and he was an amazing musician, and still is. And so it was, and then, but I met Leni and we just kind of, one thing led to another, which was wonderful, you know. And now we've been together for a whole bunch of years. Leni never wants me to say that we're married for 40 years because she says away her age. But I say, well, we got married when we were 3 years old.
There you go.
So she's 43.
And Leni, you studied film scoring as well as guitar.
I studied film scoring and composition. Joe Smith was like an amazing teacher for me, because he was like very creative and very funny when he would give us an assignment, and I always had trouble sticking to the assignment, because like a melody, I would start with a melody, and we had like, you had like 12 bars and then like a bridge for 8 bars. So we were given a form, and I could never fit my ideas into the form. And he never gave me a hard time about that. The reason why they do that is because when you're a film composer, the film determines what it is, and you have to learn to be flexible. So, I didn't end up a film composer, because apparently that is not very easy for me the way I compose. I became like just a normal composer and did not write much. But nowadays, sometimes I play on other people's film scores when they have to deal with a director and all the cray, and I can just play my guitar and play beautiful arrangements.
It's really hard, right? To study film scoring is really a whole different thing, isn't it? Is that what he was teaching mainly?
No, Joe Smith was teaching. He was Herb Pomeroy's assistant, and he was teaching composition. And I also planned to go to line writing after that. Well, line writing, like you had never made it because you got the gig with Miles, and we moved to New York, and there went my line writing.
Oh,
But I was in New York.
so this is all Miles Davis's fault, all this.
Yes, Miles.
Yeah,
I don't know about line writing.
You could still come back and do it. And you know what? We now have a way that, you know, people can come and study how to play in film, like how to do the guitar part of the film collaboration. We started that because so many guitar players now get hired to play in films.
Right.
And so we started a collaboration. David Tronzo teaches the guitar end, and then the guitarists in his class get hired to go play the film scores in the studio.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like so we've
so
kind of
cool.
kept that thread, you know, that thread through
Right.
that you were in the more in the earlier years of that.
Yeah, it
department.
was like, because you had, as a composition major, you had to give an instrument, and that was the great thing, the difference between Germany. In Germany, I studied composition in Germany, but they were like, you have to play piano and violin. And I
Right.
played piano, so they let me slide with that, but they kept on me about like, you know, you have to be working on your violin because you have to play the proficiency in you. I had no interest in learning the violin. I already was trying to learn how to play the guitar. I mean, how many hours are there in the day? So when I came to Berkeley, and they don't have these kind of rules, you could just, you want to learn how to play guitar, you play guitar. You don't have to play violin if you're in the composition department. You can, I mean, I see the wisdom of these rules because now that I have written for violins, I've picked up a violin to just see like, what does this thing do? And like, what is hard on this instrument or not? As a composer, it's always good to know, like, I used to play the stuff, I used to write the stuff for the saxophone, and Mike Brecker would play it. And I would say like, is this off your saxophone? And he would say, not off my saxophone, of course. But you know, it just goes to show you, I didn't know how to really write for the instrument because I didn't understand what's hard and what's easy. You know, on the guitar, those chromatic, like noodly lines, on the saxophone, they're really easy. On the guitar, you like have 5 different fingerings, and then you got to decide. Well, it's not made for that. So I learned a lot actually from just like, you know, the film scoring part was good because we had all the students we could write for. And then, you know, you write something and then they play it and it does not sound like what you had in mind. And that's a really good lesson because you have to, if you want the music to sound good, you have to write for the instruments. And I really appreciated that I had all these people that could play all these different stuff. It's like you have like a big box full of crayons of colors that you can work with. That was what I love. You know, when I worked in Germany, I had to decide on a piece of paper who was going to play that. And, you know, I would go and have friends that were musicians and say like, let me hear what that sounds like when you play that. Like I had a friend that played the vibraphone, and I said, oh, okay, this is what that sounds, because sometimes it doesn't sound at all like what you think it's going to sound like. So here at Berkeley, that was perfect that you had all these different instruments. And I think it made a really good composer out of me because I just knew, but usually by like I'm around something and it sounded horrible, but it sounded great on the guitar. I come to the recording and I say like, why does this sound so bad? Because certain things are hard to play in tune on certain instruments. Right. You know, if you write really hard shit, the people are going to have trouble. Like on the trumpet, certain things you really shouldn't do because unless you have Randy Brecker or Tom Harrell, it's not going to sound good. You know, and you can't count on having that. You know, you have to be able to write. And that was like, it was like a really cool workshop as opposed to the German conservatory where you had to study, you know, Stockhausen and counterpoint. Also, you know, they made me study counterpoint again here. And I was like a little less unhappy the first time because I was kind of good at it because I had done it in Germany and they're really fussy about counterpoint. That's their pride and joy. So they like really go to town in torturing you with that. Now,
did they have counterpoint here though, as kind of?
Yes, they did. We had to study counterpoint. But they were not as
species.
Species counterpoint. Gradus ad Parnassum, it was the same thing. Because in the composition department, you know, we practice scales and arpeggios. For composition, you got to practice composing. You can't just like sit down and think it's going to fall from the sky like the rain. And composing and counterpoint is like what Bach and all of those guys, they used, that was how they practiced composing. how they wrote different lines, and then you go to 3 and 4 part harmony. And we went through all of that here in the composition department. It was really, really good. And it was kind of nice for me because I felt a little out of place being from Germany, but that traditional part of the composition I was really good at. Even so, I didn't know like how to swing, what is swing and where did that come from. That's what got me to Africa afterwards, because or anybody would ever say, like when I asked like how do I I'm from Germany, how do I like really swing, and they said, yeah, it comes from Africa, and then they wouldn't say like anything else. And it really didn't tell me very much of like how I could swing better. They said like, oh, it comes from Africa. I said, okay, great. And now what?
Okay, so here's what I love about both of you. So they tell you it comes from Africa. So she goes to Africa, right? And she grabs every African musician and will play with her and learns how to do it. And this is what I love about both of you, because you're practicers. And so now you're talking initially about what you learned when you came here years ago, but you were learning new things like an hour ago. Like Leni and I were working together. You were like, we swap lessons together. And so you were like learning some new things. And Mike, you were like stealing the triad things from other people and working and practicing. You're just practicing all the time. And you're always bringing people in. So your home became a workshop. Your home became grad school. For generations of musicians have gone to your apartment to sit and practice with you, or your hotel rooms, or like practice rooms and schools you've visited.
As much as I like to do what I kind of, I guess it more or less started here, just the idea of just having some other people that are also students that were going for the same thing, trying to learn, trying to learn music, and so we get together and try to improvise together over tunes and stuff like that. So I learned so much doing that I try to do that at home too, with different people, or a bass player that's interested in coming over and chatting with me, or another guitar player. And of course, Leni and we play together a lot too. And it's so it's fun. We practice together different things. So it's really, but that kind of idea is what I learned so much from that kind of situation that was developed. It was just kind of a natural thing to do here, was get to different other players and learn so much. And then because we were also getting all this information from the classes, and we tried to put it together right away, did the best we could with it anyway. And it was, so yeah.
Mike, I have a question for you about that you talked about in one of our classes this week. A lot of people are afraid to do that, to get groups of their peers together, because it really freaks them out. Like, in fact, I went to your master class today, and there were a bunch of students I knew, and they were like, I'm so nervous because all my friends are here, and I'm afraid to sound bad in front of my friends.
Right.
And you really have become really comfortable with saying like, hey, listen, I'm nervous, or I feel insecure, but it doesn't stop you from being curious. Like, how do you do that? What advice do you have?
I mean, like, I guess, you just do it. Like my first thing was my first jazz gig was at Michael's Jazz Club. There used to be a little club on Gainsborough Street that a lot of us would try to get gigs at and play, right? And I remember I finally got a gig there. This is, I think, maybe after I played with Blood, Sweat, and Tears. It was, I think. And I still hadn't really played a jazz gig. I mean, I played with Blood, Sweat, and Tears, but not a jazz gig of my own or a trio. This was a quartet, I think. And I was scared to put, everybody put up signs around the school to get people to come. I'm playing at Michael's on Thursday, at 8:00, and this is the band. And I was scared to put up signs. And I was studying with Pat, and he said, I told him that. And he said, you got to get past that. That's all he said. I said, thanks for the advice. I didn't. Thanks a lot. Can't you give me something else? But it was true. I mean, one way or the other, I had to work past it. And that's all he said. And so basically, I just kind of did it anyway. You know, you just, you kind of, you can, it's normal to feel those feelings and feel, you know, nervous, feel like your friends are gonna, you know, that's the scary part of putting your heart out, when, especially when you try to play and you're playing, you're spending all this time trying to work on something, and or maybe it's a song, which is even harder when you write something, and you feel very vulnerable at putting that stuff out. And so the main thing is you just do it, and it gets easier as you know, at first, the first jazz gig I did, 3 people showed up. My you know, at Michael's, this gig that I finally, you know, I finally put up one sign, I think, saying, you know, anyway, 3 people showed up. I couldn't hold the pick. I was so scared. I've dropped it about 3 times. I was shaking so bad. Everybody left. The band was a quartet. 3 people were in the audience. You know, we outnumbered the audience. Everybody split. So the club owner said, well, you know, I don't think you need to play the second set. And I went, oh, geez, that's great. A first jazz gig. Boy, things sure went well. Not. So the next gig, I think it was actually worse. And then the third one got better. And, you know, so, and you just keep going. I at that point, I felt like I had nothing to lose. I may as well just keep going, you know? And so that's what happens. And it's still like that sometimes. There are times when you show up, you post it everywhere, and not that many people show up at a gig for whatever reason. And you just got to do it anyway and try to just, you know, enjoy it and try, or best you can, or get through it. And accept whatever it is. And then there are times when everything goes much, much better. A lot of times when everything goes better, and you learn so much from playing gigs. So it doesn't matter. It's like you have to look at it and readjust your expectations sometimes. Expect to feel a little awkward and nervous, especially if you haven't done that many gigs. If you haven't experienced that much, you expect that. And then you have to expect, not expect great success, you know, like, oh boy, this is it. I'm gonna, I'm gonna be, the Rolling Stones next week. You know, I'm gonna outsell them. You know what I mean? It's not gonna be. You got to keep it on the ground. And the main guarantee about all this stuff is that you'll have music in your life if you want it, to keep it, you know, and it's up to you. It's up to the individual to keep it happening. And in order to keep it happening, you have to kind of water the, as I like to say, water the flowers. So it sounds a little corny, but you have to kind of practice every day and keep it happening. And then you get better, and the chances are you get more gigs and more chances to you know, it gets better, you know, as you get more opportunities. And John Laporta, who was a great teacher who was here for years and taught here, used to say, and no one can take that away from you. You know, once you get into music and you have it in your heart, you get a little fluent on all these scales and all this stuff, and it starts becoming music. No one can take it away from you. You know, you can take it away from yourself, but no one else. It's yours, you know. That's a guarantee. That's a lot just there. And then you got to think that there's no guarantees, but the odds are, you know, then you keep going, you get better, and you got more chances at getting gigs, teaching, and making money doing this. You know what I mean? So, and it's a good chance, you know. And some people have to do gigs that they don't want to do for periods of time because things slow down, you know. But you just keep it anyway because it's something you love. I think probably everybody in this school that comes here wants to have music in their life. They want to play as best they can. They can't give it up. I mean, that's already, that interest is amazing, and they got to just keep it happening and readjust the expectations that it's going to be hard sometimes, and sometimes it's a hell of a lot easier than what I'm saying. You know what I mean? What I'm talking about, it can be, but there's ups and downs. And that's normal. It's normal. But what you get as a guarantee is music in your heart and your life, and that's a lot. A lot of people don't have stuff like that, you know.
Yeah. You know, Leni, on a related note, another thing that it's hard for people to wrap their mind around is how do you start getting people to play with you? And, you know, when you're a composer, you're writing your own music, you want people in your band. When you want to learn music from another culture, how do you get people to bring you in or bring them in? And you were giving some of the students some good advice last night about how you built these amazing bands with great players.
But you go out to hear music a lot, and if you feel somebody, chances are you're going to hear somebody that just kills you, and then you just take a deep breath. And well, first thing is you go and tell them.
Take a deep breath.
Tell them like, I love the way you play, and then you're gonna have to take a deep breath and say, would you ever consider playing a gig with me? And you know, sometimes they may say, you know, I'm in so many bands already, it's going to be really difficult, but we can just jam. But most of the times they are delighted because you're going to do all the hard work of getting to them, dealing with the club owner, dealing with how anybody can get there, getting equipment for everybody. Like, you know, some people bring their own stuff, but you are in the end responsible for everything be there. So if you take on that job, you'd be surprised. A lot of people are so happy that they just have to. I'm like right now playing in Michael's band, and I'm so happy because all I have to worry about is like take my guitar, learn the music, and come and play. So what you're offering to people is something really luxurious and really wonderful, and most people feel that way. So I, you know, when I first got to New York, I was very scared of getting a gig because I thought like I used to get so nervous. My lips would get stuck to my teeth. So if I smiled, my lips would stay up. And then the only way you get them down is
like because your mouth is
and that also looks horrible. So you have to like turn to your head. Try to get your lips loose from your teeth because they're stuck here because your mouth is dry because you're like, oh my God, nobody's gonna come. Oh, somebody came. It's like, you know, it's like, no, wait, first you think nobody's come, but you're like relieved nobody's scary came. Like my first gig here, Mick Goodrick showed up and he had disguised himself as to not scare me, but he wore this outrageous hat. And Claire Daly, who played alto saxophone in my band, she said like, who's the guy with the hat? And I looked and said,
wait, why? He thought he would make you less nervous if he wore a weird costume?
No, he thought they couldn't recognize him. He thought they wouldn't know it's him. But it was like he wore like such an outrageous hat that everybody looked, oh, who's the guy? Oh!
So it made his disguise made people look at him more.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, thought I was really touched that he knew that he would like make me so self-conscious about, oh, what would Mick say if he heard that? You know, it was like horrible. But, you know, then I got busy like counting off the band and like trying to play the music and remembering everything I had to do and playing a nice accompaniment to Claire Daly. It was just me, no piano player, you know, and an alto saxophone. So I got busy just with the music. And that's usually what happens. You're like nervous. Once, you know, as nervous as I get in any situation, once the music starts, you're too busy to be nervous. And like sometimes you're like, of course, like you play nervous, you know, Bill Frisell was like my teacher. I studied with John Damian, and also Bill was John Damian's star student. So I started with Bill Frisell. And when we both moved to New York, he said, you know, you should like start playing some gigs. And I said, oh, no. And he said like, you know what, if you get a gig, I'm going to play. He didn't think I was going to get a gig. But like, you know, I was like, pretty young European girl, and I went to a Brazilian restaurant and said, can I play here? And the guy said, of course you can. He was sitting in the window of the Brazilian restaurant playing standards together. And I kind of figured out that it is not the end of the world, and my lips will eventually get unstuck from my teeth. And then Paul Motion told Keith Jarrett to go to hell and found himself without any jobs. And Bill said to me, said like, you know, Paul really doesn't have any work. We should just hire him so he can work a little, because I guess, yeah, he shouldn't have told Keith Jarrett to go to hell after he was booked for half a year. Now he doesn't have any work, and he was thinking of going to Vegas to play. And Bill was like totally scared. So we got Paul to play with us. And I remember the first gig. Oh my God, my lips was the whole time like this. And I was like so scared. And Paul was a real jokester. He said, he looked at me seriously and said, count it off. And I was like, I couldn't count off a tune. And he was laughing like crazy. And he just eventually started playing, because I must have looked like really funny, like being so nervous and like standing there in the middle of the club. And of course, because Bill and Paul was playing, every drummer in the universe was at the 55 bar. And everyone said, okay, Leni, announce the band. I was so sorry. I had Bill, like with his quiet way, he had roped me into this whole thing. This was not my idea. And I was not amused. And then when Paul started playing, all of a sudden, I'll never forget it. I felt like I was a real guitar player. Even though I played the same as I always played, but I looked at the solo and I felt like, whoa, I don't sound half bad. And that thought had never crossed my mind. But he made you sound good. He made everything you played special. And he structured your solo for you. And after I stopped, the audience applauded. I hadn't done anything to deserve that about, but Paul structured the sound. And then, Bill was in his rock time, went to the moon with this, and we became very popular. That's how I got
great.
And that's how I always did that, because I realized, I think Joe Smith might have said that to me, that if you want to hear your songs, your music performed, you're going to have to go through the rigmarole of becoming a band leader so that people play your music. That's how your music will stay alive. You're going to have to find people. So he said, get good at that. Mm-hmm. Get good at hooking up with people. And I think he also might have said, if we should get together and play each other's songs so we know that they sound good. And he was very smart, because whenever we did it and somebody else played my melody, they sounded better than when I played it. So I would get together with people and we would play our songs for each other. And that's really what the band was. And that's kind of the joy I got for it. I knew, like, I wrote something and agonized over it in my house and was like my overcritical self. And then Bill Frisell would play the melody and I would think like, well, yes, it's a song. I was very happy because he made it. There is this thing that the old Broadway guys used to do. They would like always have these like stupid melodies to play, like somewhere over the rainbow, like corny stuff. And
that's not corny. That's a great tune. You don't mean that. You don't mean that.
Like another, like like silly songs, and they would find a way to make a good song. You know what I mean? Like they would play silly songs and they would sound like $1 million.
Yeah. No, it's true.
Play it, and they would change the melody and change the phrasing, and all of a sudden it was a true tune. Wow. So that's kind of what happened when I brought my compositions to players that had more experience than me, and they knew how to shape a song and how to, how to make something sound right. And I was real lucky with that.
But they were always good tunes. I just think, you had the same thing. I think that she has the same thing as, I'm sure you have the same thing, Sheryl. I'm sure Kim, we have the critical faculty sometimes that goes crazy and beats ourselves up, like, well, we can't, it's not a good song. It's not a good whatever. And it's a good to have a critical faculty and just to criticize yourself, and because it makes you improve, but you can't go overboard with it, because then you'll never do anything. You just talk yourself out of not doing stuff. So do
you think playing with other people, like both of you have like famously been like side people in other people's bands, and then you've been band leaders, and sometimes with the same people? Like I was in his band, he was in my band, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Do you feel like that has helped you with some of this, or is it a different mindset totally for you?
No, it helps a lot with the same kind of thing. Yeah. And the main thing is just to, like anything else, to keep it simple and just do it no matter what, just to compose no matter what. I mean, how hard is that though? Leni, isn't that too hard to do?
Well, for me, actually not that hard because all that stuff that I thought was useless that they made me do in Germany and then in the composition department here, like I did counterpoint 3 times. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it just means I practiced a lot of writing, you know, all of those like studies of intervals that they do in classical music. It made it a little bit easier for me.
But didn't you have to read?
Like sit every morning and write a counterpoint thing. Like
didn't you had to do that recently with that guy, right? You did also in Germany.
I did it the first time in Germany, the second time at Berkeley with Joe Smith, and the third time with Paul Caputo, who was like a Schönberg.
And was it like kind of going through the same thing all the time, or did it get easier the third time?
It did get easier because I had an easier time writing melodies and I got better at composing. But these things are designed to be a challenge. You know, they put little trippy things in there so that you have to not fall in the pit that they make for you. They make it so that you mess up. And then, you know, they're exercises to challenge you. So
right.
It's always a challenge. And if you don't fall in one pit, you fall in the other one. You know, right. There is no end to that. But it just makes it more, you know, if you just write counterpoint all the time, it's not your composition. There's no ego attached to it. Of course, it's your melodies and
yeah, of course.
I studied with Edgar Graner for classical composition and. But it's just important to practice composition. I mean, I have like what you talk about, the agony of composition is that you get stuck. Like you write an A section and you can't find a B section to go with that. So you can just do like Wayne Shorter and write a very short tune, which I think is the best solution to the problem, or you modify everything so that it finally fits together. So these like problems that arise when you compose, they can drive you a little nuts and make you want to like throw the whole thing out, you know, like do crazy shit, like tear up the page, like run out of the house, push the music stand over, and like talk to the cat, you know. if you try really hard to
and then listen when the cat talks back.
Yeah, that's
what did you say?
Okay, Sheryl, I know that you have so many things on your mind, so I'm going to turn it over to you. Like,
well, first of all, thank you. I mean, you guys are so cool to come here and hang with us. And there's so many things over the couple of days.
It's a pleasure. It's a big pleasure.
There were so many moments over the last couple of days and in this conversation that it's going to be so important for our students to hear here. And one thing, both as a composer and an improviser, you have to do it. You have to do anything well. Or you were talking about reading. You can't, people say, I'm not a good reader. I'm like, well, what did you read today? Nothing. Well, you know, you have to do, this has to be something that you do. You get good at things that you do. But we also, this was so beautiful for both of you to say this to our students, because I have students that say, I can't do my audition, or I can't do this thing because I'm anxious and I'm scared. And I'm like, well, that's actually what we're saying is that's exactly why you should do it, because you're going to get better at that. And so it was so beautiful for both of you said that this different times, like, well, I'm actually really nervous right now, you know, and you keep it's like that onion and you keep peeling the layers and the layers and the layers. But if you don't deal with it,
it's just going to get worse.
You're not. So it's beautiful for you to say that and for them to hear that, because they think, wow, Mike and Leni might be nervous or be self-critical. Oh, okay, maybe I'm okay. Maybe I'm not going crazy. And and I don't know. I thank you for doing that. And and also you were just so positive to everyone. You found their strengths, everybody's strengths, you know, because everybody can't be good at everything. You know, some people are, you know, it's like there's stories about Grant Green and George Benson when they'd go out on the club to sit in, and they would call the tune that the other one they knew wasn't their strong point, right? So, you know, stuff like that. But you think, well, what would George Benson or Grant Green have something they don't feel confident about? But everybody does.
Right.
And I think that's the thing for our students to remember, that we're all in this.
Exactly.
So I thank you for bringing all these.
It's a good point.
I want to just tell that story again, that in acting, they tell you there was at the Comédie Française, Sarah Bernhardt was the most famous French actress. I don't know if you know, she's a European thing. She was fabulous. And they were in the dining hall of the Comédie Française, of the main theater, and this bunch of young actors were talking. There was this young, beautiful actress saying, like, I don't know what everybody's talking about. I do not get nervous. And Sarah Bernhardt walks by and she said, don't worry, darling. It will come with the talent.
But
it means, like, if you care about music, if you have any talent at all, you're gonna be nervous because a lot is at stake, because, your heart is in it. And, if you suck, you're going to take that heart. If you don't care about music, there is no problem. But if you do care, if you love it, where there's love, there is problems, But there is also, like, happiness.
It's worth it. Yeah, it's worth all that's the main thing. It's definitely worth the working through the anxiety. And there's no other way to really, at the end of the day, there's little things you can do probably to get you through doing a gig where you get nervous and you want to kind of manage your anxiety a little bit. But people breathing exercises, or some people just meditate ahead of time, or some people do a lot of drugs like the old days. But I don't do that anymore. Now I just feel nervous. But I always felt nervous. Drugs never helped, actually, to be very straight up. But that's where some people do turn to, and that's not a good. I would not have advised for that. I would advise very much against it. But the only way to really get past all this stuff is to do it. Is to really just, like Sheryl just said, you actually just have to do it, and you get more experienced at dealing with whatever feelings you have, the nervousness, the anxiety, and then it turns more into excitement.
Right. Exactly. And that gig I was talking about, the whole time when I first played with Paul Motion and Bill Frisell, and Harvey was playing, Harvey Swartz, the whole time I was telling myself, going to the gigs, like, why did I do that? How did Bill treat me? Like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. How did I got myself? I was the whole time in my head, I was thinking, like, I wish I could just drop dead right now and I wouldn't have to go there. It's like, how about I get an asthma attack? Like, nothing happened. And after that first song, when I felt like I could play, I said, like, oh, that's why I do that. Right. So I get to feel like I'm walking on clouds, and Paul Motion and Bill Frisell playing this super cool shit behind me. So we just gotta hold out until you get to the reward. And sometimes it seems like impossible, and in your mind it's like, it's going on. But if you can hang in there long enough, you're gonna get to the happy place.
If you practiced, and that's the thing that you both do all day long. I know this for a fact, because I have been there and I've seen the evidence. I showed up every day in the summer for like 2 months, and you were practicing all the time. And I think that's what people have to know too. There's courage there. You have to take the leap to really, really, really practice.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to kill yourself doing it, but a couple hours at the minimum, probably every day. And you can find 2 hours, even if you got another gig you have to do for bread.
There's also, like, it's like a refuge. I noticed it when I was a little girl practicing piano. If I had done something bad and my mother was about to come and chew me out, if I was practicing, she would wait. So I practiced. I knew I had it coming. And by the time I was, like, done practicing, the steam was out of her lecture. And said, oh, here she comes.
And you get spanked later after you practice. But wait, Mom, I've got another hour.
Like, it's like, oh, I'm practicing.
That's cute.
But practice is like a refuge from the world also.
It's also fun. It's also fun. It can be really fun, obviously. Practicing can be a joy because you start getting more fluent at something. You start realizing there's some improvement. Just things that you were really hard at first become relatively easy. And then it's a groove. It's
Yeah.
like, wow, that's fun. You know, you kind of look forward to it. And you see that work, maybe the very beginning of a practice session where you're trying some brand new stuff, that's kind of like pulling teeth a little bit. But basically, you know, most of it is great. You know, it really can be really a lot of fun. But you do have to, you get to that point and especially if you can do it on a regular basis, it's easier.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Both of you have played with so many different people. And Mike, I'm wondering, I mean, it doesn't matter who you're thinking of, but are there specific people that you played with where you think, oh, I know I learned this thing from that person? You know, just like playing with someone else maybe taught you something you didn't expect to learn. Is there something that comes to mind?
Oh, a lot of stuff.
Would you be willing to share a couple things?
Yeah, I mean, just playing with, I was just thinking about Mick. I'm still, obviously, we're all sad about it because he just died. We just lost him.
Yeah, we just lost Mick Goodrick a couple days ago. We were all together when that happened.
Yeah, and it was,
and some of our dear friends on the faculty were with him when he passed away. And it just reinforces how important it is to be together in this, you know, guitar community. You know, it's like a part of all of us.
Yeah, and that's a really beautiful thing about that. And then you start realizing what he gave to all of us. And
yeah.
You know,
so what's something that stands out to you, like that you learned from him?
From Mick, oh my God, I mean, he used to just talk about kind of developing solos in some ways. And that's always kind of just that general idea of pacing yourself. Pat used to talk about that a lot, Matheny too. And John Laporta used to talk about that. John Laporta also said, who was an amazing, you know, we never played together, but as a teacher, he was very influential. And he just used to talk about time. How important time is. He said, you know, he had that voice of, did you know him at all, John Laporta?
No, no, I do.
Don Corleone voice. It's almost like a horse kind of. It's, I don't want to offend anybody's religious sensibilities, but in the beginning, there was time. and he's true when you think about it, you know.
Yeah.
So he was just an amazing teacher and kind of stressed a lot of things that are essential about music. That I learned a lot. But you know, listening to Miles every night, I mean, just hearing him play, how soulful he was and how he would pick notes and stuff like that was incredible. And you can't even describe it, but it's just the same thing as playing. Like sometimes Leni and I are just playing together and you hear something, I'll hear something she does and it's just, well, you learn from it right away. Wow, that's kind of cool, that rhythmic thing. And then maybe I'll stop and say, what is that? You know, and try to develop it my own way or outright steal it.
Yeah, I've seen you do that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You can take whatever you want. That's what I think you stole from everybody here.
Of course, and I'm
like yesterday. I believe
so.
you did. And you're welcome to steal.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Steal all you want. Come visit even more.
Yeah.
So, Leni, what about you? Who are some people you feel like you learned something important from?
Well, Bill Frisell, of course. Like the way he plays a melody, I was like, what was that? I learned a lot from the drummers I played with, of course, Paul Motion. You know, the way he dealt with time. I was very, very fortunate that him and Keith Jarrett got in a fight because, you know, yesterday somebody asked me, how did you end up with all these great musicians? Well, that's how I end up. They started into a fight and I was there and he had no job and that's how I got Paul Motion.
Yeah, but Paul, I mean, he was doing that as a labor of love. It wasn't like he was getting a lot of bread from that gig. He just wanted to
He
play.
just liked it. But no, you know what it was? Paul was like the coolest guy.
I mean, you were paying him like $50 a night.
No, I always paid him $100 and we came and picked him up and brought him back and set up his drum set for him. All he had to do is sit his ass on the stool and start playing. That's what it was. And but he had not one, but two girlfriends in their 20s that would come and were like, Paul. They're like, so they loved it. And Paul liked to play with girls. He played with me, and he played with what's her name, the piano player we just lost. I'm showing my age. But he liked playing with women. Mm-hmm. He just enjoyed that much more. Like, I don't know why, but he just like, he liked girls. He was like a super cool guy. He was like a heartthrob. I mean, these 20-year-olds, they were fighting over him. Mm-hmm. And he said, and he invited both of them to the gig. And the rest of the band was saying like, what's he got? We don't got that. like, what the fuck? He got all the girls. So like, that's how I ended up with him.
And he liked to play. He liked your music too. He really liked your music. Your passion for music. There was some vibe that
he liked my songs. He liked my songs. That was like.
And then you did that record. You did that record with him with Harvey.
Yeah, like Bill talked me into that too. He said, you know, you should record that. And I said, oh, I couldn't. And he said, what do you mean? We sound bad? And then, like, you know, this is like psychological terror. Like, you think we don't sound good? I said, no. You sound fabulous. You sound fabulous. Okay. We'll make a record. He kind of like tricked me into making.
Well, you made the record, but I guess who got you out of the bath? You were so scared. You didn't. You said, I said, Leni, it's time for the recording session. No, I'm staying in the bath. I'm staying. I remember that. But you made it.
Say that. No, I locked myself in the bathroom and refused to come out. I was so scared. And then he made me do. He said, I paid for the studio rent. If you don't come out, all hell's gonna break loose. So I came out and I played the whole record. And then Bill said, you're gonna have to get like distribution. So I like went to the first distribution guy and I said, like, I made a record. Would you like it? And he said, yes. And then Bill said, like, wow, that's a miracle. I said, what do you mean it's a miracle? You sent me to go. You think it wasn't going to work and you sent me to do it anyway? And he said, no, I just didn't think it was going to work with the first guy you meet. But that was like Jim Snowden. He's not with us anymore. And he liked the record. And he also knew that there was like Paul Motion. They were like superstars of jazz.
Larry Willis, Paul Motion, Harvey Ford.
Paul Motion, Harvey Ford, Bill Frisell. And Bob Berg was playing saxophone.
Yes, and Bob Berg, who did his solo over. I know he wanted to do his solo over on. He wanted to fix something on.
He fixed all his better. Yeah. And Hiram Bullock produced the whole thing.
Yeah,
see,
Hiram Bullock produced it.
That's amazing.
But it's just like all like, you know, all like I was scared to death the whole time. You know, I wasn't going to come out of the bathroom. I was just going to stay there until the end of time. I was not going to go, but you said like it's too late. You should have thought about that.
Yeah, you should have chickened out like I was at the time. And then finally, after you did a record, I actually wrote a ballad called "After You" for you because I said after I'm going to have to do a record after you, dear. And you did it. You did the record.
I had written 5 scores. Theater before. I had written 5 scores for 5 theater plays before, and I would hire other people to play it. And I produced all the theater music. So I knew what it took to get a band together and to produce it and to have that put in the theater and to have that. We recorded it. We couldn't afford live musicians, so we recorded that stuff and played it. And I played some of the easy guitar parts I played myself, but for my theater music, I had a lot of horn players, a lot of percussion, and a lot of piano and organ. So it was not that unusual for me, just for me to be in the middle of that and play the guitar player and be the band leader live. It was different because all the film scoring work I had done, I was like hiding in my cubbyhole.
Yeah.
And it wasn't live, it was just recording. But if you come out and the first thing you say,
then you have to play.
Joey Barron looking at Paul Motion, and you're like, oh my God, Joey Barron.
And you've got Larry Willis, and Bob Berg and all these giants. And yeah, it's hard. But you did.
They were really, really nice to me.
Yeah,
they were really nice. There is no reason to be afraid of them. If you really are honest in your love for music, like all the musicians, they're gonna dig that.
Yeah, no, totally.
I know for myself, I like all these students I heard, and they played fucking great. I'm happy, it makes you feel good when you see like a younger person following in your path and like with so much love and so much enthusiasm. It's a good thing. There's a lot of things in the world that are not good, but that's good.
Mike, did you find that too? Did you find like you got some good support, or when you were freaked out playing with different people when you were younger?
Totally. Much more than and you know, when I have a tune that I think, oh, is this kind of suck? I'm not sure about this tune. And I'll play with somebody, and if they, you know, I play the whole thing, and then they'll give me, you know, say, it's cool, you know, it works, and or they like it a lot, and it's beautiful, you know, and it helps. Because given to my own brain, I'm like already, you know, it's terrible, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know, so you need to do that, which brings us back to the same thing we were talking about, how important it is to share the stuff in this kind of community, especially where you've got all these other guitar players and all. And of course, people are going to think, you know, that their friends are going to like, you know, they'll be embarrassed in front of their friends because they may not be able to play, you know, the way they think they're supposed to be able to play. But most of the time you get the opposite. You really get support. And most of the time, not always, but it's something you got to get used to. There's some people who are just like going to nitpick or be kind of a little colder and not give as much support maybe. But 90% of the time you get what you need in terms of
But you know, the thing is, if you get really good, or if you get really lucky, like I got really lucky because I was just there, and Bill wanted to play with Paul Motion because he loved playing with Paul Motion, and he made me hire Paul Motion. That was very selfish on his part, and Harvey wanted to play. Everybody wanted to play Paul Motion, so they sent me to get him. You know.
But he wanted to. I know
he liked it. He liked it, and he liked it so much better than
he wouldn't have done it otherwise.
Was a nitpicker of everything. We were just like happy with everything he played. But you know, people are gonna get jealous, and I got like, and they're gonna really go to town and put you down. But you just gotta tell yourself
that's where you gotta be.
That has nothing to do with you. That has something to do with them. They are probably feeling bad about what they are doing. It has nothing to do with you. Right. And don't be afraid to get into somebody's face. You can just like go to somebody and say like, what is your problem? Because usually people don't like to do it to your face. They say it behind your back. And you can come up to them and say like, what have I done to you? Why are you running your mouth? You know, I didn't do that until I was much older. I just went home and cried in my corner when I heard about it. And somebody had the courtesy to inform me that everybody at the 55 was laughing about what I was doing. I went home and cried. And then I went back and said, who? And then I told Dennis. And I sicked them on him. And next time they called Dennis, he said he's busy. So I said, okay.
I think that's good. I think it's good to remember that.
You just gotta in there and fight, you know.
Yeah, you gotta be.
It's not gonna be shitty if you're standing out. You know, you're standing out from the crowd, so you make yourself a target. So what?
And most of the time, you get past that part of it, and most people are supportive. You get plenty of, and sometimes you get both. When I was playing with Miles, it was
when you're a woman because people feel like they can like get on women and nothing's gonna happen. Like, you know, if you know you're gonna insult a guy, you kind of pretty much know that you're gonna get a fight. But people think they can just like say nasty shit about women and they're not, and nothing is gonna happen. So that's why I made sure something happened. But you know, but you know, that's the reality of it. People think that we're just a pretty decoration of the pie, but we are the pie. So.
And don't you think too that it's okay, like you'll have negative experiences with people and it is what it is. And then you have positive experiences. And then as you grow and you develop, you get to choose more and more who you work with.
Yeah.
And positive people. And you know, what we're trying to do together here with all of us who've been through this program is try to make it as positive as possible.
The thing is that the positivity it's definitely here. In this situation, amazingly in Berkeley, which is great. Everybody's trying to focus on that, which is great. So it's a good. It's good to teach that and to have that vibe so people can carry that elsewhere. You know, because it's so important. And what I've noticed is, maybe, you know, just in general, I'm pretty sure this is accurate, that there's more support nowadays. There's more kind of being able to relate to some of the hardest stuff that you're trying to, you know, the anxiety and the nervousness of trying to be creative and trying to write a tune and trying to, that kind of thing. You get more, there's not maybe quite as much nasty stuff. I mean, there's tons of it on Facebook and stuff like that sometimes. Not so much that, you know, generally the positive outweighs the negative by a country mile, you know, like a lot, I think. Oh, for sure at the end of the day, but just by able to, you know, have your music played, you know, and you got a gig, you just got to go and not worry about whatever negative happens. There's much more positive.
Right.
It's way worth it, you know what I mean, all the time. But like when I was first playing with Miles, whew, I got my ass kicked by, there were two different camps. There were some people that said, wow, cool, a rocker who's playing jazz and playing, you know, and Miles dug that. He wanted me to turn up and play like Hendrix, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He just didn't want me to bebop that much. And I would do some, and he liked the fact that I did it, but he wanted loud, turn up, play loud. So he was the boss, so I followed. I said, yeah, okay. And but there were a lot of critics at that time that were just in the, you know, this was kind of a new thing, you know, still had been done by Miles earlier, but it was a little bit more new, you know. So I got my ass kicked quite a bit at first, you know, with Miles, and the whole band did. And then later people found, you know, Miles was always way ahead of his time. So people now they listen to that record, and some of that, you know, like We Want Miles, that recording, and people really dig it. You know, it's like, and there were a lot of people that were my age at that time that were digging it.
Right.
But some of the older critics were not thrilled. So you just have to deal with it. You just have to, you know, Miles used to say, and he told me a bunch of stories when he first came to New York, and he said critics were dogging him like crazy, and other people. And he just said, you know, in his own, you know, you can't say it. I mean, I guess I could say it the way he would say it. Say, fuck them motherfuckers, you know. I mean, he just said you got to keep going, you know, and
well, because he played with Bird when he came, and
Bird.
Dizzy had been with Bird, so
right,
you know, people were going to compare.
Oh, he got his ass kicked.
Yeah,
he told me he got his ass because his sound, and people were they're saying his sound wasn't good. This is Miles Davis, who has an amazing, what it may not be classically trumpet, you know, that type of sound, but whatever he got out of that horn was smoking. It was beautiful. And and he got dogged for that a lot. And then there was a whole bunch of stuff just about jazz in general from the classical world, which is disappearing some, but is still there somewhat. You must know that, right, Kim?
Yeah, sure.
So you have to live with it. You have to live with the negative stuff. But the positive stuff is it my imagination, or is it just way, way more than the negative? Much more support than detracting. Even
but it comes from different places sometimes. Like I was always supported by the press. I got really stellar reviews. And all along, from the first record on, I had like good coverage in Downbeat and Jazzies, and all the magazines, all the journalists were much more progressive than the club owners and the
well, it was really cool music too, but I know, and the club owners, they wanted more people.
But the press did not take advantage of the fact that there was a woman band leaders. The club owners says if they had a bad day, who are they gonna pick on? Somebody like your size or somebody like my size? They just thought they would get away with it, and they thought if they pick on you, you take your Telecaster and bonk them over the head with it, which is what probably would have happened.
I did it several thousand times. No, I didn't. But no,
Take it off, and they're like, oh, sorry.
but I think I got the same kind of thing. One thing I did was just, somebody had a club and sometimes the guy would be disrespectful or drag, or when I just said, it's a jazz gig. There aren't that many. So I just hung in there. I just played it. That's one of the reasons I still played at the 55 bar. And I could kind of see the writing on the wall that jazz clubs might not be all, be as many around, later in the year. So I said, let me just hang on to this no matter what. Because the first club owner was really weird at that place. So we had to take a lot of, and Leni kept saying, let's stop playing there. It's crazy. And I said, well, it's a gig. What the hell? I mean, I don't care as long as we get a chance to play. And it worked out kind of.
But, I also went to other clubs and surprise, they were not much nicer.
It's a hard gig. It's a hard job. It's a hard job all the way around. So sometimes people are in bad moods or for whatever reason. But, that's some of the hard stuff to work past. But the other stuff is the people that are other musicians that are generally really, they understand from the vantage point of their own experience that this stuff is going to happen and that you can get through that way. You know what I mean?
Right.
And which is great. One thing I'm not a big fan of is YouTube and comments coming from people without them having to put their real names.
Right.
What's up with that? How come they don't change it? That seems so, you have to do it if you're a critic. You have to put your real name. At least they got to do that. This is chicken shit where you can say some nasty stuff and, you know what I mean, and get away with it like, haha. I used to throw water bombs at cars when I was little because with shaving cream in it, and we'd throw a water bomb or and it would explode on somebody's windshield. We didn't know how dangerous it was. We were little kids. Finally, my parents caught me, and I had no TV for a year.
That's why you practice. That's why you started practicing.
That's why I started practicing. That's what got me into the guitar. Are you kidding?
Oh my God!
No,
we're glad you. So listen, Ian. You always have a question. And so you're going to have to choose. You're going to have to ask each person your question, which maybe you all have already answered, but I think it's really important. So Ian, go. It's all you.
Yeah. So there's something we ask everybody on this show, which is what's something that students should be thinking about that they might not think to ask? Like maybe a bit of a blind spot that like maybe they should take advantage of when they're here at Berklee?
Good question.
Like, what's one of the things you wish you knew when you were a student? Like
more composition, I wish I'd done. And to be honest, I wish I'd taken a few more just straight ahead courses in something else than music. More like just whatever else they're teaching here. But at that time, there was nothing like that. It was just Berklee College of Music. That was it. They had a few electives that I guess you could take regular stuff, but I never did that so much.
Okay, you heard it here on Coffee Talk from Mike Stern.
Yeah.
Take and enjoy your liberal arts classes.
Yeah,
your history.
They're good. I mean, it's all good for your brain and for music, and it's all connected. So. Whatever you can do at school, take advantage of it and try to do more than you do. Take on more. If I don't want it to be a slave driving, situation where you're just clobbering yourself and overdoing stuff. You want to try to have fun with the learning experience, and you don't want to take on too much. But I wish I'd done a bit more, just a little bit more in some other areas. I was basically focusing on instrumental performance, so it was guitar, basically. And maybe if I'd taken a couple more writing courses like Leni did, or liberal arts even.
Yeah.
Conservative arts, for that matter, no.
Leni, what about you? What should they be thinking about that they're not thinking about yet?
They should be going to the percussion department and take that as an elective. So they just think about it. When I was in school,
that's a cool idea.
we could take, and especially as like, you know, film scoring majors are allowed to go everywhere and take a class, because we should be knowing about the instruments we write for. So I took
Really? Is that what?
yeah, they if you're on this film scoring program, you can like take any, I don't know if it's still like that.
I don't know if it's still like that, but you
it
should
was
do
like
it
that.
anyway.
You could
should do it
just take a class. So I took a percussion class because, like, you know, all this, like, being that I'm from Germany, I was like super self-conscious about the swinging and the rhythm. And so, because, like, you know, in Germany, in classical music, that is not like something we train. So I took a percussion class in the basement, and it was great. So I would suggest you can also take a drum class, but I studied drums actually also, but it's like a lot of technique that you have to learn. Like, you have to learn like paradiddles with your hands, with both things, and it doesn't hurt your playing. And if you want to, you can take a drum class too, and any of them, anything that makes you focus on only rhythm and time. So I wish I had taken 3 of those classes. And I would also encourage you to go to the bass department and take a bass class, because our bottom strings and a lot of the jobs you will get there, you won't have a bass player and you will be the bass player. So if you can like play a good bass line, so like all the singer-songwriters are wanna hire you. And the third thing is that I think you should take a vocal class. You should learn a little bit what your range is. You don't need to go like crazy with technique, but you should just learn how to sing. Because, like, you know, one time I needed a bass player, and like I played with all these people, and then I picked Tim Lefebvre, because he could sing. He could sing behind the chorus. Like, everybody was great, but Tim could also sing. And that's why I hired him, because then I didn't have to hire a backup singer. And I got paid $100 for the gig. So how am I going to pay 2 people? So I would say those things: percussion, bass, and voice. Learn how to do that. You don't have to, you know, there's even a category. You don't have to become a singer, but you should be able to sing in tune and come up with a nice backup part. And you're going to be working forever. And, like, you know, figure out how to play a good bass line. And I don't think you should just like try to play bass on the guitar. Go to the bass department, play a little bass, and see what that does to your guitar playing. Most of it will teach you how to leave more space. Because in the bass range, you can't clutter it, because those low notes, they don't sound good if they're like jumbled together. And you learn how to like hang with the note you play.
That's great. Sheryl, what's on your mind as we're coming to the end of our call?
Thank you, guys. Thank you both for your great energy and positive work with the students, and really opening up about real things, about what it's really like to be an artist and a guitarist and a composer and a band leader. I mean, this is real life stuff. So you're very open with everybody. And I know our students really need to see that from their role models. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ian,
Sure. This is fun.
Ian, what about you? What are you thinking about as we wrap it up?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just really happy to hear, like, you know, it's a lot of the same things that we hear from other folks. I mean, some great stories, but you know, the concerns, that the issues that students have, that musicians out there who are listening might have, to hear, you know, their heroes basically talking about working through those is really great. And encouraging you to enjoy practicing and take liberal arts.
And take liberal arts.
I love that. You know, I was thinking this week has been this really special week to have you both here. And it's also been a really hard week because, as many of you who are listening know, we lost Mick Goodrick this week. We talked about that a little earlier in this hang. And it was so good to be together with you both.
It's been great. I want to mention also that this friend of ours that we all know,
yeah. So many of Mick's friends really hanging out and being together and helping, and really feeling like this big Berklee guitar family is so important to us.
And I was remembering all these things about Mick. Mick used to come and stay with us in New York, and he wrote this whole book of triads. And then I went to lunch with him and Paul Motion, and they were like reminiscing about their tours, and they couldn't remember the city or the country where they had played.
Or everybody's name,
like,
you know,
where
like
was
the
it?
bass
Or
player.
like, who did we play this? Like, what was his name?
Oh my God.
But they were touring so much
Right.
that they couldn't, like, is it Italy? It must be Monday. It's France, isn't it, Mick? So that's how
Oh my God.
He wasn't touring that
But
much. Mick wasn't touring that much, did
I
he?
he used to
mean,
be. Yeah, he was
it's
touring.
And
amazing.
then maybe it's at different times, at different
Like
times.
early on, yes, he was doing a much. I first saw Gary Burton with Mick and Pat in
Oh,
Germany.
yeah, they were touring. Yeah, that was a great band.
Pat
Yeah.
was playing 12 string and Mick was playing normal guitar.
Yeah.
It's
I
amazing.
remember that. Yeah.
We're going to keep hanging and keep having coffee. And this is so awesome to have you guys here and have you guys on this. It really is a big, great Berkeley guitar family. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, and my pleasure.
Yes.
Big
Thank you,
pleasure.
Leni, and thank you, Sheryl.
Thank
Jen,
you,
thank you,
Cheryl.
Cheryl.
Ian. And we'll be with all the rest of you on the next Coffee Talk.